So recently I finished a huge watch through of the entire DC animated movie universe. And those reviews are up right now here on World of Geekdom. And in the last one that I did for Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, I talked about how I may continue doing this for the new animated universe that came out after the DC AMU. And this is referred to as the Tomorrowverse. And so far there are three different movies so far that are out in the Tomorrowverse. Superman, Man of Tomorrow, Justice Society, World War II, and Batman The Long Halloween. I'm going to try to get all these reviews done and wrap up with Batman The Long Halloween either on Halloween or right before Halloween. So let's begin today with my review of Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Now, this begins a new universe, which means it's a new set of actors, it's a new set of animators, and a new aesthetic and a new canon. So this is not related to the DC AMU. It's a new universe, like I said. Now, this story, first of all, before we get to the story, I want to talk about the animation. This was a very different and unique animation aesthetic and art aesthetic compared to the DC AMU. The DC AMU looked great. This looked a lot more like the TV show Archer, where, actually it looked a lot like Archer, where the characters look almost plastic Flash-esque, like old Flash cartoons, but not quite as stiff. They actually made the animation look smooth, and it just had a different sort of look. Superman had more of an angular face. The characters maybe seemed a bit more revised and upbeat, visually that is. And I like the look. I probably prefer the DCAMU look a tiny bit more, but I can't say I can complain about this look. I think it looked great. So, as part of the new voice cast, we now have Darren Criss playing Kal-El, Clark Kent Superman, Alexandra Daddario as Lois Lane, and Zachary Quinto as Lex Luthor, among a cast of others that played different characters. Like, for example, Eugene Bird played Ron Trope. Eugene Bird was... some of you guys don't remember Eugene Bird. If you're a 90s kid, you might remember him, though. He was in a bunch of stuff from the 80s and 90s. He was in 8 Mile, and he was in Are You Afraid of the Dark? Go Google his name, and you'll know who I'm talking about. But he appears here as well, and several other characters. Now, Superman, Man of Tomorrow is, to me, a perfect way to start off this new universe, because we're starting off with Superman, the OG, and what they did here was interesting. This was kind of like a Superman Year One Smallville type of story, in that we don't really get the Superman origin, in that it doesn't start on planet Krypton. We don't see the explosion. It starts on Earth. I mean, we know what happened very briefly, but it's not like it takes up a quarter of the movie like in other, I guess, adaptations. Here it's mostly about Clark and his life on Earth and the early days of him being Superman, working for the Daily Planet as an intern, meeting Lois Lane, meeting the people at Star Labs, and meeting, of course, Lex Luthor. But unlike other, opening stories to Superman, Lex Luthor is not really the main villain here. In fact, he didn't really do too much here. This story was really a very different look, a very different style. I liked it a lot, yo. I'm having a hard time finding things to dislike about this movie, because I had a good time watching it. So, the story here is that Kal-El is on Earth, and he's joined by the Martian Manhunter and Lobo, both of which are also, aliens, the last of their kind, or so they say, who are on Earth. And this story is sort of like the balancing act between the three, as the world begins to kind of become accustomed to having these alien, superpowered beings on Earth. And Superman, of course, being the beacon of light, Lobo being this grunge rock badass, who, by the way, was probably the most enjoyable part of this movie. I loved everything he did. I mean, even at the end when he said he had to take a huge intergalactic dump or whatever, I enjoyed that. And Martian Manhunter, as the serious exposition character, I think worked out really well. And I like how they kind of address mankind's atrocities. He even discusses that they have to stay secretive because human beings have a history of being very xenophobic and very racist and prejudiced towards aliens because obviously some aliens are good, some aliens are bad. Now, that early fight with Superman and Lobo, where he's at the kryptonite ring, that was freaking awesome, where he's punching him, like, I really enjoyed that. This was more of that kind of, following the DC AMU, that edgy kind of Superman where it's not squeaky clean, or I'm sorry, edgy kind of DC, where it's not really squeaky clean. Lobo says some curse words like bitch and, stuff like that, words that would never be seen in the WB back in the day around television. And, there is gore. I would say it's not quite as gory as the DC AMU, at least not yet, but it was more gory than something that would be on television. But these DC home video films, animated films, usually push that boundary. And I really like the idea of Lobo having like a bounty on Superman's head, and at the end of the day, they all have to work together to battle this strange mutant called Parasite. And I actually don't know much about Parasite. As a comic book fan, I'm not familiar with Parasite at all. It kind of reminded me of like an alternate take on Doomsday, even though that wasn't really the story here. They've already done Doomsday a bunch of times. So, Superman working with Lobo, working with Martian Manhunter, have to work together against the Parasite. And it becomes kind of like this monster movie type of situation. It's not really like a one-on-one fight. They give you that earlier in the movie with Superman versus Lobo. This is more like, we all have to work together to stop this huge threat. Kind of like what they did at the end of Batman v Superman, where they all fought Doomsday there when it was Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Here, it's just the Parasite instead. But I feel like it's this is different. This was pretty well done. But interestingly enough, they do plant the seeds for Luthor being the villain in the future, or at least being a thorn in Superman's side by the end of it, when he's going to escape. And at the end of the day, Superman does, save the day, of course, and finally introduces himself to the world, but doesn't really give away his true identity, but he lets the world know who he is. So it really is like a origin / coming of age story, but you're not dragged through like the boring story. I wouldn't say boring. Let me take that back. Superman's story is not boring. We've had this origin story told a bunch of times, but it was done here in a different way. Even Man of Steel went back to the traditional way, and that's Zack Snyder. This was, with different aliens coming in and different threats. It wasn't traditional, 1978 Richard Donner style of storytelling. And that's okay. Like, you want to try different things with these movies, and I did appreciate that. So, Parasite, at the end, kind of a tragic story, with the sacrifice and whatnot, but one that I think worked out. Like, I did like this movie a lot. It really did. It had the feel. This, unlike the DC AMU, this actually had the feel of the 90s Bruce Timm Superman animated series. Different look, more edgy, but it had the same kind of spirit. The music by Kevin Ripple, I think his name is, did sound very heroic. It had that same kind of tone. There's only so many times you can retell Superman's origin story before it gets, played out. And I think this did pretty well. I think it did pretty well. Now, again, I never read the comic book Man of Tomorrow stories. I've never read those before, so this is my first time. And I did like watching this. This was a good view. It's on HBO Max. The next one that I have to watch is Justice Society World War II, followed by Batman A Long Halloween. I will bring you those reviews in a few days. Well, at least the JS one. That one will come first. Then Batman A Long Halloween. Superman Man of Tomorrow is a thumbs up. I don't know if I like it as much as Superman Doomsday or Superman Reign of the Superman, because I really, really, really love those movies, yo. But it's definitely a different take on the Superman year one type of story. And I wonder what they're going to do with the rest of it, because Batman The Long Halloween is a beloved comic book story. So the DC animated world usually delivers. So I'm optimistic and I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, what did you think about Superman Man of Tomorrow? Let me know. I will talk to you guys tomorrow the man of tomorrow when I review WWE's Crown Jewel. We'll talk then.